language macam tu kan. Maintaining, saya recap sekejap, maintaining our relationship with our subordinates in the working as perspective lah, meaning how you handle your relationship with the people who report to you in terms of their duty. That's what it means. Okay, and then how you maintain your relationship with your peer, people who sit at the same level with you, your peers lah, your colleagues lah, kan? All of them ada do and don'ts. The same goes to the relationship with your superordinate, the people you report to, your boss lah maksudnya. Kan, everything tu ada dia punya do and don'ts, kan? Betul tak? Boleh recap balik semula lah. Do and don'ts kan. And then body language, written language macam mana cara menulis, kan? Written communication macam mana, apa kebaikan dia bersifat permanent. We can check over and over again before you send it, things like that. Okay, and then go to the verbal communication. Verbal is very impromptu, faster lah than writing, but we tend to make more mistakes lah because it's impromptu kan. But we can have immediate feedback kan, berbanding written communication, kan. Non-verbal, body language, kan, mimic muka, facial expression, kan. We enlarge our eyes so our children know what it means. Some parents do that, right? Something like that. Okay, and we just shake our hand left to right means no. We nod means yes, but in some cultures it means oppositely. Ada culture yang I forgot yang ngeleng maksudnya ya, kalau macam ni tidak. tak ingat, terbalik pula. Kan, facial expression, lagi apa, gestures, lagi apa, proxemics, kita punya jarak dengan orang lain, kita ada jarak privacy, jarak yang kita selesa, tu proxemics. Kan, lagi apa tu, voice, intonation, apa nama dia, saya ingat, tak lupa term dia tu, term psychological kan. Kan, ayat yang sama tapi dengan nada, kita cakap dengan nada yang berlainan, dia akan jadi lain maksud dia. Ayat sama kan, kan, dia boleh jadi, kalau cakap dengan nada yang mendatar menjadi statement, cakap data dengan nada yang bertinggi sikit boleh jadi sarkasm kan. Boleh jadi tu, boleh jadi mamali, kan. Intonasi main kat situ. Lagi apa, itulah emang yang saya ingat lah, kan. Itu tentang sustaining relationship. So today we are going to hear something about managing conflict and anger. Benda yang kita tak boleh nak elak. Nobody can avoid conflicts and anger in their lives, kan. Nobody can actually. So that we just have to know how to handle it, kan. So saya ada orang kata apa, e-lecture kan, kita ke ulas lah. E-lecture ni saya buat semester yang bukan semester lepas, semester lagi lepas tu sebenarnya, kan. Sekejap, lambat network ini, ada sluggish sikit lah the network, kan. Dia tak nak on pula benda tu. Sekejap. I have to reload over and over again. Okay, baru dia nak access kan, lambat sikit. Website tu lambat sikit lah. Managing conflict and anger. Okay. Saya nak share ke lah. E-lecture tu nanti kita buat ulasan sedari lah. At the end kan. Dia sama je likens our inner feelings like volcano kan. Kita boleh tahan certain benda tapi bila sampai when we come to the limit, it will erupts, will blast macam like volcano, right? The anger inside. Sebab orang kata marah ni kita ada anger management kan. Kita boleh tengok lah movie anger management. Ada movie anger management sebenarnya. Good lah movie tu. Next time lah kalau ada masa kita boleh tengok. Kalau ada lah, kalau kita ingat kan. Anger management. Lama dah, quite long time ago lah. The movie kan. Anger management. How to handle your anger. Because anger will have, if you don't manage it, it will have a very dire consequences. Very bad consequences. We don't want it. Kan? Kita boleh marah beberapa saat atau beberapa saat saja. Tapi relationship hubungan yang dia akan rosakkan adalah maybe forever. Maybe. Even boleh man pun the relationship won't be the same as before. Itu kesan dia kan. Itu perlu kan. Dalam hadis, dalam Nabi pun katakan marahan ni kan senjata syaitan kan. Orang tengah marah ni dia sanity dia punya kewarasan tak ada atau pada at minimal point. Dia mudah dimanipulate oleh iblis masuk kat situ lah. Kan? Lepas tu baru menyesal. Marah punya pasal bergaduh, tetak adik-beradik, bunuh adik-beradik. Menyesal dah tak guna. Bukan boleh hidup balik. Kan? Tengok kesan dia. Kesan dia sangat besar. So kat sini kita kata managing conflict and anger. Ini penting satu one of the most important aspect in our life lah actually. Sebenarnya bukan not easy lah kan. Okay, kita boleh nampak ni kan. Okay, I am going to silence my microphone because nanti akan double voice kan. Okay.
Chapter 7. Managing Conflict and Anger. In this chapter, you will learn to 1. Identify the sources of conflict. 2. Distinguish the different conflict management strategies. 3. Discuss the sources of anger. 4. Relate your own anger issues to the different anger management strategies. What has the volcano got to do with our topic? Now, think of the volcano as yourself and the magma as all those hot or unpleasant feelings you have kept within you. These unpleasant feelings increase over time and builds pressure within you. One fateful day, someone may just happen to shake you up a bit, perhaps in a disagreement or conflict. Now, imagine that you had quickly opened your mouth as quickly as you had opened the soda bottle, and all that latent pressure in the magma within you quickly gushes out, sprouting molten lava all over the place. Can you predict the ending of the story? How does that make you feel? According to Hernandez, 2014, conflict refers to the belief of actors on the incompatibility of goals, values, needs or interests, and behavior, actions to eliminate, defeat or neutralize the other as an expression of how incompatibilities are intended to be handled within a social context. Hunsaker and Alessandra, 2008, state that conflict is a disagreement between two or more parties, individuals, groups, departments, organizations, countries, etc., who perceive that they have incompatible concerns. Conflict exists whenever an action by one party is perceived as preventing or interfering with the goals, needs or actions of another party. Conflict is a natural outcome of human interaction that begins when two or more social entities, i.e. individuals, groups, organizations, and nations, come into contact with one another in attaining their objectives. Relationships among such entities may become incompatible or inconsistent when two or more of them desire similar resources that are in short supply, when they have partially exclusive behavioral preferences regarding their joint action, or when they have different attitudes, values, beliefs, and skills, or simply perceived divergence of interest. Rahim, 2015. Christopher Moore, 2014, had grouped conflicts into 5 types: information, interests, and expectations, structural, values, and relationships. They may be looked upon as the system, where each is interconnected and interrelated with one another. 1. Information or data conflicts. This type of conflict is associated with disagreements about facts or data. It can be a result of lack of information, too much information, misinformation, or disinformation, and incomprehensible or inaccurate information. Some authors refer to them as simple conflicts because resolving them is as simple as determining the source and the process of getting them together. Unless, of course, parties have different views of how, when, and from whom those data should be collected from and how they should be analyzed. Such conflicts include matters such as policies and figures. 2. Interest conflicts arise out of the feeling of not being heard or acknowledged, of competing needs, interests, and goals. Such demands are usually presented with justifications and fairly revolve around principles. Words such as "I deserve this" underline such conflict. It is important both you and your conflict partner clearly underline each other's most pressing needs, concerns, and desires and work towards meeting those needs. Framed as a search for options and with the adoption of superlatives such as "what is your most important concern right now?" or "how would you like me to meet your most urgent need?" will motivate each party to think win-win. 3. Structural conflicts or resource-based conflict. This type of conflict is usually the result of constraints imposed by limited resources, types, amounts, and the use of and access to resources. The resource in question is normally beyond the control of parties in the conflict or are bounded by structures such as family, organization, or society. If a resource is unstretchable or indivisible and parties will not give in, consider pushing the decision-making to a higher authority. More serious issues are sometimes brought over for arbitration or mediation. 4. Values and beliefs-based conflicts. One source of value conflict that most of us can relate to is the different values held by groups from different generations. Because our values are our source of expectations, when they don't materialize, we become very upset. The best way to address this is to reframe the value into the desired specific behavior or to agree to disagree. In dealing with this kind of conflict, we constantly revisit the values that we hold dearly, but which do not resonate well with those presented by people of other generations, for example, teenage children or elderly grandparents. It is easier to agree to disagree rather than to impose values as they are living in their era. 5. Relationship-based conflicts. Because relationships are formed through interpersonal engagement bounded by certain parameters of a specific aspect of our lives such as parents and children, or couples, or peers, the causes of relationship conflicts vary from strong emotions about something, misperceptions, poor communications, miscommunications, or even repetitive negative behavior. At personal level, there are 2 types of cost, which are emotional cost and health cost. First, emotional costs. The negative emotional effects of conflict are not only confined to the conflicting parties alone, just like the effect of smoking on passive smokers. Research shows that children exposed to intense parental conflicts are at a greater risk of developing emotional, social, and behavioral problems. They have low self-esteem, low educational achievements, and are prone to heart diseases. They also have difficulties in maintaining healthy relationships with others and are a threat to cohesiveness and conformity of the group or family. Second, health cost. Croswell, Bauer, and Gans, 2014, found that constant arguing is most harmful to health, while Franson, 2014, found that it leads to premature death. Think of the amount of money you spent to produce the energy in order to protect and defend yourself. Count them in ringgit, dollars, reals, taka, or rupees for that matter, and think of what you could have spent them on. Do not forget your medical bills as well. At organizational level, Levine, 2011, looks at the cost of conflicts as the transaction costs associated directly with the conflicts and also their effects on productivity, opportunity, continuity, and emotions. The figure shown provides a summary of the cost of conflicts. Taken positively, conflict fosters an awareness that problems exist and discussing conflicting views can lead to better solutions. How do we develop the ability to look at conflicts positively? We can by developing an abundance mentality, followed by appreciating the power of opposites. Abundance mentality is a mindset set to believe that there is enough for everyone and that you are free to be who you are. This is the direct opposite of scarcity mentality, where you have to fight or grab whatever you can before anyone else does. Individuals with the scarcity mentality will be less willing to share recognition and power and to be happy with the win-win resolution. They are all out to win. We understand that opposites attract, but when confronted with opposite views, we chose to repel. In promoting the idea of power of opposites, Checketts, 2008, said, in perceive the energy inside conflicts as they transform opposition into innovation. Checketts promotes celebrating the power of personality opposites, the power of cultural opposites and the power of ideological opposites. This brings to point the idea of polarity thinking, an idea first introduced by Barry Johnson. Polarity thinking invites opposites to appreciate the wisdom of multiple points of view and strategize and leverage on them to produce virtuous cycles of engagement and innovation. A simple analogy of the power of difference or polarity has been given by Kais, who likens them to breathing. You inhale to help provide oxygen for your body. Try keeping the air a little longer than usual and you will be struggling for air and forced to exhale the carbon dioxide, which is the waste you produced, before you can inhale again. Then you will need to exhale again and the process continues until it ends for good. You just cannot have one without the other. Appreciating opposites may just be the thing you need to do in order to get you unstuck from what seems to be issues or problems at hand. The carbon dioxide needs to be removed. Levels of conflict. Level 1, Differences. At this level, parties acknowledge that there are differences between them, but they are quite comfortable about it. This is healthy because the diversity within each could be harnessed to breed creativity. This is constructive conflict. Parties who are more able to embrace and explore their differences, deeply investigate the situation and are able to express wonder and curiosity, would be providing a sound foundation for innovation and creative decisions. Level 2, Misunderstandings. At this level, we each carry with us our own sets of beliefs and values, experiences, and tribulations and thus perceive things around us differently. We acknowledge these differences and oftentimes celebrate them, but sometimes have to deal with the negative aspects as well. These differences may bring some discomfort but have not stopped us from building better, stronger and bigger bridges. Differences are interpreted as pimples, irritating, embarrassing, painful at times, but with proper medication and gentle care, the skin will be as good as new. Level 3, Disagreements. This is the most delicate position and stands at the midpoint of the intensity continuum. While parties in a misunderstanding acknowledge that something had gone wrong, believing that it can be pulled back quite easily, parties in a disagreement see the situation differently. Regardless of how well they understand the other's position and interests, there is a negative inclination to believe that the other party disagrees with them. Level 4, Discord. At this level, parties are highly tensed and strained, even during routine interactions. There is disharmony and it is difficult to maintain any kind of relationship. Serious damage can ensue if the situation is not addressed effectively. Level 5, Polarization. Polarization is characterized by severe negative emotions and behavior with little or no hope for reconciliation. At this stage, two themes can be seen. 1. The active recruitment of support for one's position and fanning of the flame happens. 2. Unwillingness or inability to attempt perspective taking, wherein neither is willing to re-engage. In a marriage, the couple is likely to proceed with divorce, and for countries, it could be war. Polarization or intractable situations would most surely lead to severance of all ties, but there are exceptions to the norms. What is conflict competence? It is the ability to develop and use cognitive, emotional, and behavioral skills that enhance productive outcomes of conflict while reducing the likelihood of escalation of harm. The figure shows the 10 principles and 3 key elements of conflict competence. Dubbed as the building blocks of conflict competence, they provide us with the basic skills to effectively manage conflicts. Conflict competence can be summarized as comprising of 5 building blocks made up of 3 skills and 2 abilities: cognitive, emotional, and behavioral skills, and the ability to cool down and slow down, and to engage constructively. Cognitive skills here refer to having an awareness of your current attitudes and responses to conflict, an understanding of conflicts and their basic dynamics, and your understanding of other people's current view of conflicts. Such awareness is important because attitude can affect your response to conflict. Asking these questions may help to evaluate your current conflict attitude. How often do I face conflicts? When conflicts occur, do I prefer to avoid dealing with them or give in to others? Do I take time to listen to other people's thoughts on an issue? When conflicts emerge, am I aware of my feelings and those of others? Do I rush to solve problems before I'm sure of what the issues are? Do I collaborate with others to come up with solutions, or do I make most of the decisions on my own? Being cognitively competent means that you are able to look at conflict as something to embrace than something to avoid. Emotional skills here relate to your ability to understand your emotional responses to conflict, of regulating those responses, and of attaining and maintaining your emotional balance. It also involves understanding the emotions of your conflict partners. Being emotionally competent means that you are able to 1. Address your hidden fears. You are able to address those submerged fears that had made you defensive. It can be such issues as the fear of losing face, or being seen as incompetent or useless. It helps if you learn to focus on the present moment. 2. Reframe your mind. You are able to conduct cognitive reframing and challenge the original way in which you see the problem or understand the situation. It involves making cognitive reappraisal or re-examining the way you define or explain the situation and your ability to delay or hold your judgments and recognize that being upset is not in your best interest. 3. Be mindful and aware of the present. Being in the present allows you to be emotionally balanced because your focus is on the present and the purpose of being in the present. By doing so, you will be able to shun away from distressing thoughts about the other person or the issue lingering in your mind. In doing so, you are able to stop the problem or issue from aggravating. 4. Stimulate your emotions. To be emotionally competent, you must be able to: first, express appreciation. Second, build affiliation. Third, respect autonomy. Fourth, acknowledge status. And fifth, choose a fulfilling role. Behavioral skills relate to your ability to engage constructively through developing a better understanding of others' perspectives, emotions, and needs, and the ability to share your thoughts, feelings, and interests. Being behaviorally competent means that you are able to celebrate differences and be comfortable about collaborating, and as such are able to develop creative solutions to issues. You are also pleased about reaching out to re-engage and reconnect. Cool down relates to your ability to regulate your emotion and cool down in stressful and conflicting situations. The cooling down provides a more conducive setting for further discussions. You do not allow yourself to remain in a state of emotional imbalance for long because you understand that you may end up saying things that may aggravate the situation. Slow down is a buffer if cooling down has not provided the necessary effects. If it gets too hot even though the air conditioner is at 18 degrees Celsius, you know that you have to leave the room, to take a breather until you are calmer, for positive engagement. Engaging constructively is about reducing or eliminating the toxic behaviors related to conflict, characterized by the fight or flight response. The fight or flight response, also known as the acute stress response, refers to a physiological reaction that occurs in the presence of something that is terrifying, either mentally or physically. Essentially, the response prepares the body to either fight or flee the threat. It is also important to note that the response can be triggered due to both real and imaginary threats. The fight or flight response.
Sekejap, network dia slow sikit.
The fight or flight response, also known as the acute stress response, refers to a physiological reaction that occurs in the presence of something that is terrifying, either mentally or physically. Essentially, the response prepares the body to either fight or flee the threat. It is also important to note that the response can be triggered due to both real and imaginary threats. The fight or flight syndrome is more of an animal instinct of kill or be killed. To be able to positively resolve conflicts, you will have to do away with such destructive thoughts or behavior and redeploy your energy into developing abilities which are more constructive. Conflict management involves implementing strategies to limit the negative aspects of conflict and to increase the positive aspects of conflict at a level equal to or higher than where the conflict is taking place. It is not intended to eliminate all conflict or avoid them. Moore, 2014, suggests that the different types of conflict management and resolution can be classified into two categories, one that is dealt through private arrangements and the other through public decision-making interventions. Within them, the decision-making styles fall into a continuum which starts with avoidance and ends in violence. The more it moves towards violence, the more costly is the process of decision-making. Under private decision-making by parties, the conflicting parties seek to solve the conflict on their own even though they may get help from a third party for negotiation and mediation. The third party involved is not in the position to impose his or her decision on the conflicting parties. They are free to accept or decline any suggestions. In public legal third-party decision-making, decisions made by the party to whom assistance was sought to resolve the matter is binding on the conflicting parties. The legal authoritative third party will involve the use of the judicial system of the country. This may be very costly unless parties are prepared to settle the matter and no appeals are filed to the higher courts. The final classification of decision-making is generally referred to as extra-legal. They are outside the domain of any forms of legality. There are no laws and no rules to guide the decision makers, and they would most likely adopt the law of the jungle. There are 5 conflict resolution styles which are 1. Competing. The person who subscribes to competing is uncooperative and is determined to win at all costs. It is my way or no way. 2. Accommodating. The person who chooses to be accommodating is the complete opposite of the person who subscribes to competing. He or she is unassertive and cooperative and prefers to yield to other people's demands, thus sacrificing his/her concerns for those of others, which he/she may at times prefer not to. This style is appropriate when the issue is more important to the other person but becomes inappropriate when habitual accommodation turns into resentment. 3. Avoiding. People who chose the avoiding style are unassertive and uncooperative. They care the less for their own needs and those of the other party and would resort to avoiding any form of entanglements. Avoiding is appropriate when the issue is relatively unimportant, or the risks of the harm are too high. Avoiding may cause negative feelings to linger long after that. Conflicting parties may resent one another. In order to discourage people from avoiding conflicts, you will need to create a safe environment for problem solving where people are encouraged to air their views. 4. Collaborating. Collaborators seek to explore options and solve the problem mutually and creatively. They act both assertively and cooperatively because the issues and the relationships at hand are valuable to them. If you seek to promote an environment conducive for collaborating, people must be encouraged to take responsibility for decisions without reasonable fear. 5. Compromising. The users of the compromising style adopt a more moderate stance both in assertiveness and in cooperativeness. Conflicting parties choose to split the differences because cooperation is important but time and resources are limited. When dealing with a conflicting partner who quickly chooses to compromise rather than staying at a stalemate, make sure that you fully understand the issues at hand and losses at stake so as not to be burdened with having to live with regrets. Harper believes that as long as we see ourselves as victims or heroes, we automatically create villains in our conflict. Well, if there are no victims or heroes, villains do not exist, period. To that, he proposed that we cast new roles beginning with removing the victim, the hero, and the villain, not easy though but necessary. Collins suggests that we use the DES, describe, express, specify, statements. It requires us to communicate our story honestly and accurately without painting ourselves as the victim or the other person as a villain. We need to describe the issue clearly and objectively, no judgments and generalizations. Next, we need to express how the whole issue is affecting us. This helps to clear up assumptions and make us responsible for our feelings, and at the same time, move forward to empathize with our conflict partners. This action closes by specifying what we need or prefer in a nice way. Thus, there is no blame game and we are finally out of me victim role altogether, and no villains are in sight. Conflict is like a storm with a turbulent surrounding, but at the eye of the storm is peace and calmness. The displacement, movement, and friction which bring about the storm are the same as the separation, misperception, competition and defensiveness that build the conflict storm. Simmons calls them the four winds of conflict. The Salam model discusses the Islamic way of managing and resolving conflict. The word salam in Islam means peace. The Salam model provides guidelines for peaceful resolution of conflicts and fosters the development of understanding between parties. Parties in conflict are therefore required to state their views clearly so as to be understood by the other party. It is important that all disagreements be stated and defined clearly, the nature, the source, and the size of the conflict. The next step is for the conflicting parties to agree, that a conflict, a disagreement, or incompatibility does exist while all the time withholding any judgments. Separate the issue from the person. Once this is in place, parties will now start to listen, not just to listen but to listen empathetically in order to understand one another's position, points of view, and their pains and losses. Parties should then swap positions, implicitly adopting the other party's position and to defend the idea in a consulting environment or CURA. With this step ideally resolved, advising each other may be carried out smoothly. Each is actually listening to his or her own voice advising and asking for amicable solutions. Parties can then work on collaborating with one another, knowing and feeling very well how the other feels, and consequently, work towards minimizing future unproductive conflicts through proactive debates and the pooling of resources for mutual benefit. The SNT model strives to nip negative and unproductive conflicts at the bud. Targeted at pulling together available resources in order to find the most viable solution to a situation, the model involves institutionalizing the practice of shura, or consultation among members of a group. May it be a family, a working group, an organization, or a country, shura provides a platform for fair opportunity to be heard freely. From Shura, we now move on to the second acronym of the model, N, which is for Nasiha. Nasiha is the Arabic word for sincere advice and can also mean recommendation. It is about wanting good for whoever or whatever you are giving the Nasiha. It is about purifying and pulling together something which has been dispersed. Nasiha builds or develops the one being advised, for the believer in Islam loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Ta'an, T, is a concept of cooperation for righteousness. The benefits of cooperation have led many organizations to collaborate and build alliances locally or internationally, for they find the strength and mutual support from such undertakings. Change itself is seen as risky and challenging. People tend to fear what they do not know and resist any change that needs them to come out from their comfort zone. Having others to provide us with the support and motivation, things would become more manageable and the prospect of further cooperation may even be attractive. Cooperation would also provide the buffer for the emotional distress related to change, uncertainty, and threat. Cooperation will provide healthy channels for communication and facilitate networking among members, enabling the free flow of information and knowledge sharing. Cooperation and collaboration would allow members to synergize on their pool of resources and provide better benefits to all. Webster's Dictionary. Dictionary, 1913, defined anger as a strong passion or emotion of displeasure or antagonism, excited by real or supposed injury or insult to oneself or others, or by the intent to do such injury. Anger is a feeling of keen displeasure, usually with a desire to punish, for what we regard as wrong toward ourselves or others. It may be excessive or misplaced, but is not necessarily criminal. Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary, 2006, defined anger as a strong feeling which makes you want to hurt someone or be unpleasant because of something unfair or hurtful that has happened. Most of us would have had experiences which irritated us or made us upset or sad. It is all right to be sad, but we should not allow hurtful experiences to dwell in our heads and grow from a little molehill into a big mountain. Based on the evolutionary theory, people believe that anger and aggression are favored products of selection and have served humans well in order to protect themselves as well as their families, friends, and resources. Over time, it had evolved into weapons of attack and destruction with much higher costs to both the angry person and the recipient of anger. The higher the intensity, the higher the costs involved. They may be psychological, financial, social, or emotional in nature. Anger may be expressed aggressively, passively, or assertively. It is up to the individual's choice. Assertiveness is considered appropriate, while aggressiveness is excessive, and passiveness is deemed insufficient. Some scholars have classified anger expressions into overt, covert, or delayed. Yet some others have grouped anger expressions into appropriate, excessive, misdirected, or instrumental. Angry people are normally insecure, controlled by feelings of false grandiosity, and believe that security rests in relationships with people when the truth is, it rests with God. Anger expressions of anger can be grouped into two broad classes, which are instrumental and reactive expressions of anger. First, instrumental anger expression. From the word instrument, we can expect that such an expression is used as a tool to get a job done or to get one's desire fulfilled. This type of anger expression has been defined as a negative emotion that occurs to achieve some desired and planned goal or proactive aggression. How do you know whether you are prone to using this form of expression? Among the items included in instrumental anger expressions include plan to destroy, to fight, to hurt someone, to bully, to say mean things, and to cheat in order to get even. In order to achieve their goal, angry people maliciously hurt other people even if it means having to misdirect their anger to others who had not been the cause of the anger. Planned overt anger such as this will provide only temporary satisfaction. Second, reactive anger expression. Reactive anger is defined as immediate response to some anger-provoking event that is perceived as negative, threatening, or fear-provoking. Individuals prone to expressing their anger in this way have negative attributions. They are impulsive and easily resort to violence during the conflict due to their skill deficiencies in problem solving and cognitive processing of environmental cues and self-control. Individuals prone to expressing anger in this way are usually loud, act without thinking, and are not able to sit still for long. They will not think twice to hit back physically or verbally when dealing with conflicting issues. Anger may also be appeased through knowing yourself and admitting that anger is a choice, through choosing yourself and to be shielded from negative vibes, and through giving yourself by being humble, responsible, and forgiving. At the know yourself level, anger management requires that you employ high intrapersonal skills. At the choose yourself level, your interpersonal skills come into play, while at the give yourself level, you will be required to engage both your interpersonal and extrapersonal relationship skills. There are 6 ways to handle angry people. 1. Listen. Angry people feed on other people's negative emotions or negative reactions. They seem to build up their energy when you resist and respond angrily to. By listening, you are actually breaking their momentum. You have nothing to lose by acknowledging their feelings, such as saying, I can see that you feel strongly about this. 2. Agree. Seek and validate specific information that you can agree on. People feel empowered when someone agrees with them. By agreeing, you are actually giving them the sense of power that they badly need, which will often calm them down. 3. Be specific. Avoid making sweeping statements because it breeds more sweeping statements and diverts the focus to emotions instead of logic. Ask specific questions to bring their focus to the specific matter at hand, which indirectly forces them to become more logical rather than emotional. 4. Use humor. Nothing beats a sense of humor in bringing things to a lighter perspective. Be careful though, because it may be misinterpreted and may backfire. 5. Stand up to them. Remember that overly angry people are sick people and anger is sometimes used as a tool to control or manipulate you or to test you. With such people, you will need to calmly assert your right. Speak up for yourself using phrases such as this, I want to hear you, but not in this way. 6. Go for a solution. Think win-win because the other person does not. They will try to dump the blame on you. Angry people are out to vent their emotions on you, and going for a solution may not be easy. At any time you find an opportunity, redirect their attention from the problem to the solution.
So boleh faham kan? Heavy sikit lah. So ada panjang sikit kan. Pasal anger, konflik ada anger lah. Ada dua dalam kan. Kan. Konflik dan anger ni kita boleh urusan selari lah. Ya. Kan.
What has the volcano got to do with our topic? Now, think of the volcano as yourself and the magma as all those hot or un. According to Hernandez, 2014.
Apa jenis kan? Contoh ni dia kata apa? Dia liken lah. Kita macam kita ni apa macam apa? Macam volcano kan. Gunung berapi lah. Kan? Yelah orang marah ni tak kontrol kan. Destructive effect of conflict and anger. Dia merosakkan. Merosakkan. Dan kerosakan tu mungkin dalam long term. Yang, dan not amendable. Not we cannot remedy fully, completely anymore. Kan kadang-kadang macam tu. Tentang kesan marah. So kat sini kata lebih kurang apa? Ada berapa jenis tu? Ada yang simple. Jenis yang simple tu apa? Information or data. Just because incomplete maklumat ataupun tersalah maklumat saja. Dah betulkan saja maklumat tu ataupun cari maklumat tu saja. That's all. To the simplest form or type of conflict. The second one, interest, kepentingan. Feeling of not being heard or being acknowledged, competing needs and interest and goal. Contohnya macam Rusia dengan Ukraine kan, interest, kepentingan. Rusia nak ikut kepentingan dia. Dia tak nak dekat dengan mana-mana negara yang menganggotai NATO. NATO adalah satu pakatan ketenteraan lah. Yang bermula daripada zaman komunisme Soviet Union dulu kan. So bila dia berjiran dengan mana-mana country ataupun negara yang menganggotai NATO, dengan mudah negara itu akan dipaklatkan oleh NATO dengan meletakkan spying, senjata dan sebagainya. So they don't want all those threat near to their backyard lah. But what Russia means lah, what Russia wants kan. Macam tu maksud dia. Kan, that interest, conflict of interest. Kan. So diserang lah Ukraine ni. To show the consequences if you try to express your intention to join NATO. Dan NATO dilawan pada Pakatan Warsaw, tapi Pakatan Warsaw dah tak ada bila Soviet Union runtuh. Pakatan Warsaw dah tak ada. Warsaw Pact dipanggil. Tu contoh dalam interest lah. Kepentingan bercanggah antara dua negara kan. Ukraine adalah salah satu negara di bawah Soviet Union dahulu, sebelum Soviet Union collapse lah, jatuh. Kan dia nak join NATO pula. Kan. Rusia marah lah kan. Sebab Rusia adalah komunis kan, negara komunis. So konflik yang tak boleh nak diselesaikan, dia pergi pada the highest level lah. Kan. Peperangan lah. Tak ada. No face of war is pretty. All faces of war are ugly actually. Kan. Kesan perang adalah sangat buruk dan jangka panjang dan jangka pendek juga. Kan. Then structure of resource constrained by limited resource normally beyond the control of parties in the conflict. Contohnya berebut sumber air ke. Kan. Berebut sesuatu. Berebut apa kan. Sumber air ke kan. Konflik yang nak merebut sesuatu yang the other party have it. Kan. Feeling of not being heard or being acknowledged, competing needs and interest. Tu tadi interest. Constrained by limited resources, normally beyond the control of parties in the. Okay, berebut nak contohnya macam apa? Pulau Spratly kan. Kita berebut dengan China dengan kuasa ketenteraan dia bolehlah masuk kat situ. Kan? Sebab dia ada kuasa tentera kan. Kan? Kan Pulau Spratly kan. Dia berebut resource satu kan, beyond control lah. Values and belief, conflicting belief and value and attitude. Contohnya antara generasi lama dan baru contohnya kan. Tu boleh lah, tu generasi mak dulu, generasi datuk nenek, kami ni generasi baru K-pop. Macam tu lah. Generasi datuk nenek dulu keroncong, boleh lah. Kan, berebut channel kat TV. Contoh lah kan. That values and the conflict resulting from unseen values and belief. Contohnya kan. In a relationship. Contohnya lah. Bergaduh suami isteri ataupun tunang. Itu disebabkan hubungan lah. Caused by strong emotion about something. Kan. Jenis konflik. I'm not going to review all lah. Kan. Ni cause of conflict. Kan. Cause of conflict dia banyak lah. Dia kata ada health cause. Kan. Banyak lah kan. Organizational cause of conflict maksudnya cause of conflict dalam satu organisasi lah. Organisasi, direct cause. Takkan jejaskan direct cause. Contohnya apa? Cause of professional to help resolve the conflict. Habis sibuk, bergaduh saja. Berbanding bekerja. Untuk contribute kepada productivity kan. Kan. Kerja nak resolve conflict kan. Company yang banyak disaman oleh employee dia contohnya. Kan banyak resource akan terbuang untuk nak resolve konflik kan. Productivity juga akan low. Lost time, work, diminished capacity due to conflict. Kan cost opportunity value to you might be rating pun akan terjejas juga. Contohnya continuity the cost of replacing value contributors, replacing cost, loss of ongoing relationship. Kan, employee yang banyak skill dan knowledge yang boleh contribute kepada company, leave company. Nak kena retrain orang baru contohnya. Terjejas, continuity terjejas. Hiccup disebabkan perkara macam ni lah. Contohlah, emotion, held hostage by our emotion. Dampen spirit and diminish life energy. High level of absenteeism. Contoh ni dalam perspektif organisasi. Kan? Contohlah. Ni apa ni? Problem to solve. Intensity. Yang awal tu intense, tak apa intense lah. Focus on issue to fix problem. And then disagreement. Yang kedua, self-protection. Use manipulative and sarcastic means to get message across. Open decision but do not want to get hurt. Kan? Contest. Seek to win. Do or die lah. Kan? Undermine the opponent through open personal attack. Serangan peribadi contohnya. And then fight, flight or freeze. Kan? Do or die lah. Ni do or die lah. Kan? Determine to wreck the other party's life. Usually through unethical means. Cara-cara yang kotor lah. No sense of middle ground. Hide attacks and use disguise. Attack dan baring batu sembunyi tangan. Contoh. And then intractable situation. Ni dah masuk konflik perang tu. Tak tahu nak undur lagi lah. Consider the other parties as enemies to be annihilated. Tu yang paling atas lah. Kan? Yang paling powerful. Conflict competent. Kita panggil macam mana tu? How you use our competency. Kemampuan kita untuk menyelesaikan konflik lah. Dia bagi key element, cool down, slow down, engage constructively. I'm not going to go further lah kan. Konflik ya. Dia emotional skill tadi apa? Kan, ada yang hidden fears. Kan, dia elaborate figure tadi lah. Grafik tadi ya. Reframe your mind, mindful and aware of the present and stimulate your emotions. Ini how you use our intelligence or competence to address conflict lah. Dua skill pula apa? Cool down and slow down, engaging constructively, dia kata kan. Ability to engage constructively, secara membina. Kan, ni kemahiran gelagat lah, behavior, kelakuan. Ni conflict management and resolution. Ada yang stage dia boleh duduk berbincang saja, private decision making by parties. Kan, ada yang menggunakan orang tengah, private party decision making. Arbitration lah, orang tengah, menggunakan orang tengah. Kan. Ada yang pakai gunakan saluran undang-undang, legal, authorities, third party yang decision making, judicial decision. Kan, tak boleh nak resolve juga, bawa ke mahkamah. Itu contohnya menggunakan tu. Yang ketiga adalah, yang keempat lah sekali adalah extra legal. All out lah, do or die. Extra legal, coercial, decision making, perang ke apa, violence lah, menggunakan kekerasan lah. Ya, macam Rusia tadi dia ada kelebihan kuasa ketenteraan, dia nak gunakan itu sebagai nak resolve konflik dia lah. Kan contoh kan. Tu dah macam extra legal decision making. Paksa Ukraine tarik decision dia daripada menyertai NATO contohnya. Kan. Ni tadilah jenis-jenis conflict resolution style. Kan. Compromise betul ansur. Parties cooperate due to lack of alternative kan. Memang we have to acknowledge the fact that we lack choices to resolve the conflict. So kena betul ansur. So shared benefit and loses some outcome lah. Kan. Yang kedua adalah collaboration, kerjasama. Ni yang terbaik lah kalau boleh. Mutual benefits, win-win outcome. Kerjasama lah kedua pihak yang terlibat dalam konflik tersebut. And accommodation, giving in to protect relationship, beralah lah interest kita. Jadi yang penting relationship and benefit at later time. Yang mungkin sekarang tak dapat dia punya benefit, tak nampak, tapi kemudian. Itu namanya accommodation. And avoidance, statement. Elak lah. And maintaining current situation, no decision outcome lah. avoid the solution lah maksudnya. Competition, win or lose. Menang atau kalah lah. Beza. My way or no way at all lah. Win or lose competition. Drama, conflict transformation. Kenapa ada konflik dikata kat sini? Sebab ada orang main play victim, ada play hero. Kalau kita tak lihat dia adanya victim, ada hero, tentu tak ada villain, orang jahat. Kan? So no conflict lah sebenarnya. So describe clearly and objectively. You are not a victim and the other person is not villain. Awak bukan victim dan orang yang satu lagi itu bukanlah orang jahat lah, watak jahat lah. Itu maknanya describe. And express how it affect you and empathize with the other person. Kan? Macam mana konflik tu memberi kesan pada kita dan juga kita juga kena wearing somebody the other party shoe lah. Maksudnya letak diri kita pada parti yang satu lagi tu. And then specify your preference. Apa yang you suka untuk nak resolve konflik ni contohnya. Therefore no blaming others. Tak ada lah tuduh-menuduh. Itu menggunakan DES framework lah. To transform conflict into non-conflict kan. The eye of the storm kan. The eye of the storm ni maksudnya penyerangan. Konflik tu macam ribut kan, satu yang turbulent. Tapi tengah-tengah ribut tu tahu tak macam tornado kan. Tengah-tengah tornado tu adalah sebenarnya calm, satu area udara yang tak berpusing pun sebenarnya. Kan tu maksud dia. The eye of the storm, conflict is like a storm with turbulent surrounding. Eye tu tengah-tengah tu. At the eye of the storm is peace and calmness sebenarnya. Easy for I or me to feel this calmness and resolve the conflict. Itu contoh dia lah. So dalam kat sini juga dikatakan ada salah model. Ini pandangan Islam lah. Ambil daripada pandangan Islam. State the conflict view. Agree the conflict exists. Kita acknowledge conflict tu exist sebenarnya. We have to acknowledge lah. Listen and learn the differences. Kan? Perbezaan antara parti-parti yang pihak-pihak yang terlibat dalam konflik tersebut. Advise one another and minimize areas of disagreement. That's salam. And SNT. Syura, nasihat dan ta'awun. Juga satu lagi alternatif lah. Kan model alternatif untuk nak minimize ataupun to resolve conflict. Consulting members for opinion. Syura ni maksudnya bermasyarah lah sebenarnya kan. Menasihati lah. Sincere advice to guide and given in kindness and in sincerity. And then ta'awun, cooperation for righteousness. Kan. Anger, ini masuk kepada kemarahan tadi lah. Anger conflict ni dia dua konsep yang related to each other lah sebenarnya. Anger can be described as a strong feeling which makes you want to hurt someone kan. Satu perasaan yang kuat kan. Strong, resulting from a strong emotion actually. Or be unpleasant because of something unfair or hurtful that has happened. Can result in anger, kemarahan. Ni the cause of anger tadi, dia liken something. Saya pun susah nak hadam apa cara kaedah dia. Tak apalah itu tak kisahlah. Kan jenis dia apa? Jenis anger expression. Kan? Assertive, passive and aggressive. Overt, covert or delay. Appropriate, excessive or misdirected. Jenis-jenis dia lah. Kan? Two broad categories of negative anger. Ni yang negatif lah. Kan? Instrumental. Used as a tool. Anger tu sebagai alat to get one desire, untuk nak mencapai goal yang undesirable lah sebenarnya. To hurt, to bully or to destroy someone. Kan? Negative emotion to achieve desired and planned goal. And reactive, impulsive in nature and can be easy to turn into violent. Impulsive ni tiba-tiba lah. Loud people who act without thinking. For example, road bullies. Kita tengok kan road bully banyak dalam kata jalan raya kita kan, banyak road bullies. Because anger lah. Kan? Dia tak boleh nak handle anger tu. They cannot handle anger effectively. So, the anger is translated into abusive behavior. Hurting someone is make them feel good. Kan? Itu reaktif lah. Dia react. Kan? Kan? Managing, how to manage it. Give yourself. Dia panggil lah, betul. Be humble and treat others as equal. Not above or below. Be responsible and be forgiving. Bersifat pemaaf lah sikit. Give, right? Choose yourself. Choose freedom because control and fear suffocates. Kan? Orang yang trap dalam conflict of anger ni rasa lemas, kan? Suffocates, lemas. Tak boleh, they don't find the way out. Choose to reach out and open up. Jangan rakung, don't make yourself reserved to yourself. Kan? Reach out to others. Choose to be shielded from negative vibes. Perlu halang diri. Kan? Perisaikan diri daripada vibration yang negatif. Pengaruh-pengaruh yang negatif. Know yourself. Give, choose and know. Kenali diri anda. Learn to identify and different perspective of your anger. Admit that anger is a choice. Kita boleh pilih untuk marah atau untuk bertenang sebenarnya. Untuk berhenti sejenak dan berfikir dan bertenang. Kan? Konflik tetap dah berlaku dah pun. Kita anger macam mana pun, itu bukan solutionnya. Kan? Remove your emotional crutches. The art of managing anger, kan? So the last adalah how to manage angry people. Orang yang, sebab orang yang pemarah ni dia dah, kan, dia dah, fikiran dia dah almost out of sanity lah. So kita kena listen, do not provoke. Listen dulu, diam. Break their anger momentum. Biar kerja lepaskan kemarahan dia punya, kan. I agree. Kerana to some point yang kita boleh agree, kita agree lah. Give them the sense of power. Kalau dia rasa suka kalau ada orang agree. Walaupun not totally. Mungkin ada some part of the story they express to us, we can agree that part lah sebenarnya. Kan? Be specific. Focus on the issue and avoid sweeping statement. About elakkan statement yang generalizing lah. Sweeping. Directing to them. To be logical rather than emotional. Try to be, maksudnya kat sini, try to be as rational as possible. Kan? Fokus on the issue. Dan buat tuduhan membunuh, avoid sweeping statement. Kau lah ni yang kau lah, jangan buat macam tu, kan? Focus on the issue and break down the issue and try to understand the issue. So we are going to become more rational actually. Use humor if any. Kan? Ensure that it's appropriate lah. Bukan humor yang boleh menaikkan marah dia lagi. Orang tengah marah, kan? Dalam tengah marah, kita pula pergi sindir. Kita buat humor, dia anggap itu sindiran. Lagi dia marah. Contoh lah. And then bukan maksud kita. And then the fifth one, bukan maksud kita facing and angry people, we have to back down. To put ourselves low. No. Stand up to them. But firm to them. But in a very manner, orang kata cara yang tidak menyakitkan lah. Not is nothing manner lah, but we have to firm to them lah. Remember that overly angry people are sick people, and anger is sometimes used as tool to control or manipulate others, and the angry person will try to dump the blame on others. So orang-orang yang tengah marah ni biasanya suka menuduh orang lain, kan? Everybody else is guilty except themselves. Kan? Itu sifat dia. Kan? Go for a solution. Think win-win and go for a solution when there is an opportunity. Okay? So, basically macam tu lah. Kan? Basically macam tu lah. Tentang conflict of anger. Kan? So, I'm not going any further. So, any question? Kan? Ada apa-apa? Apa-apa orang kata apa? Bukan pertanyaan lah kalau ada. Ataupun anything about the assignment whatsoever. Ada tak? Yes or no? Tak ada. Kalau tak ada, saya ingin minta diri lah. Dan saya ucapkan selamat berhari. Kita masih dalam mood hari raya, kan? Dan maaf lahir batin. Kan? So, thank you very much for coming to the class. Walaupun kita masih mood raya, tengok orang kata attendance tu tinggi, thank you. So it's a kind of appreciation to the class lah, to me. Okay, okay. So I end the class now. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Salam,
All
sir.
right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you too.